Hi, I said at the end of the last video that I would cover a bit more about the dream worlds that I lived in as I was, I think, coming out of the coma rather than when I was deep in the coma. And those dream worlds were going to be influenced by a lot of things. Now, I don't want to go into lots and lots of details about the different dreams, but believe me, they're definitely worth reading about. If you buy the book, and I hope you will, then you'll get to read those stories in a bit more detail. What I do want to talk about, though, is how they actually impact upon the memory of the person that's dealing with them, that's having them. And as I was coming out of those dreams, out of that coma, and through those dream worlds into something of a normality, which was the ICU at the Royal Oldham Hospital, then the experiences that I went through were really quite traumatic, quite frightening, and quite linked to what I had been going through and what I was still going through at the time. That is, I was in a terrible state of health. I was on the verge of death, or had just got through that particular period. I was no way out of the woods at the time. I was still critically ill, and they still didn't know whether or not I was COVID-free at that point. So as they were bringing me out of the coma, no way was that, because I was well and I was going to hop off that bed and make my way home. In fact, as I've said before, when I came out of the coma, I didn't actually know who I was. I didn't know what it was like or anything like that. What I did know at this stage was the whole world was against me. I was ultra paranoid, I was ultra delusional. I believed that all the nurses and all the doctors who at that time I saw as my jailers, my captors, my oppressors, they were all against me. They certainly weren't for me. They certainly weren't there to get me well, to get me better. Not in my head. That wasn't the case. I used all sorts of logic to convince myself just how right I was, that they were all bad and that they were all against me. I believed at one point, and very strongly, I was being held captive in Dewsbury. Why Dewsbury? I don't know. I've not been to Dewsbury for something in the region of 20 years. And I have no problem with Dewsbury, quite like the place. I just have nothing to do with Dewsbury. But there I was being held captive. Although I didn't know or understand exactly who I was or who was in my family or anything like that, I did know that I had a wife, Glenn, and I knew somehow that I had two sons, Kieran and Liam. And they at some point were going to discover that I was missing and were going to come and rescue me in Dewsbury. How they were going to find me, God only knows. But I did have escape plans, I'll tell you that. Now, when you're coming out of the coma and into the real world, these worlds of delusion take over. They become memories. That's really something of the point that I want to make, that those dream worlds took over more than 6 months of my memory from the summer of 2020 to coming out of the coma towards the end of February. They took over my life, and I believe them. It took me weeks to start to get rid of a lot of those things and prove them in my head to be what they were. But it took a lot of rational thought to do that. After a little while, as I became more and more conscious, I began to understand that if I had this memory, and this was real, and then I had this memory, and this seemed real, which was the right one? Because they couldn't both coexist as memories. One had to be an illusion, a delusion. And that took some effort, took some patience as I lay on my bed later in the different pods. But when I began to emerge from the coma in pod B, the intensive care wards, I was convinced that everyone was against me. I apparently needed to have things like morphine to calm me down because I would become agitated, I would become distressed. I was frightened because I'm coming out of these horrific dream worlds where I'm being held captive, to find that in actual fact I'm as good as immobile on a hospital bed. I can do nothing. I'm hooked up to machines behind me, at the side of me. I've got beeping noises all around me. I might as well have been on the spaceship that someone told me they felt that they were on when they came out of a coma, out of an induced coma, and they believed that they were being held captive on a spaceship by aliens that abducted them. All real at the time. If you don't rationalize it away, it continues to feel very, very real. And that, I think, is what I wanted to get over, that when you're coming out of these things, if I didn't have that rational thought, and later, because the memories did carry on coming back to me, they were memories. They weren't dreams. They were worlds. They were much more vivid and long-lasting as memories than dreams are. Dreams, you wake up, it's gone in moments. Sometimes you remember parts of it. Sometimes you have recurring dreams. Sometimes you have recurring themes. Most people, most dreams, they're gone before your first cup of tea, first cup of coffee. They're gone. Not these. They're still there. They're still with me. They still feel very real. And they feel more real than a lot of the memories I've had to recapture through conversation, through discussion with people between the summer of 2020 and the spring of 2021. That's a long time that those dream worlds of what was probably maybe a week have been extracted from that coma. Probably a week, but it felt like forever. And some of it is still very real. So, one conversation that I did have with the doctor was that sometimes people go away with those memories as being of what the ICU is about. Remember I said how paranoid I was? The whole world was against me. All those doctors, all those nurses, they were all evil scientists to me. They were holding me captive for some sort of an experiment. And that is what I believe for quite a while. Imagine if I'd not been able to rationalise that away, what kind of thoughts I'd come away with, what I would talk about as the ICU, is how they treated me as they held me captive. Dastardly people, indeed. Anyway, I just want to say one last thing. I would like these videos to be shared as much as possible. All proceeds go to charity. All sharing will help to grow that. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.